What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a winning Wednesday. Cheers to all you out there tuning in tonight to Fourth and Go Philly 4 for 4, plus so much more. I'm Dave Gleckner. This is Mark Tomasini. We've made it to week 18 of the NFL season. One more to go until what shapes up to be an absolutely glorious set of playoffs ahead. But before we get there, let me bring in Mark. What's up, bud?
What up? What up? It's a winning Wednesday. The Sixers pull one out without Joel Embiid. Things are good. Obviously, there's some more serious issues that we need to talk about, but it's always good to be doing our thing on Fourth and Go on Heat Ratio Sports. Check out our YouTube, and we'll bring it to you.
So I got a little glass here. Do you see what that is?
I don't get the other half, but I see it's Buffalo.
Buffalo. So other half is at the brewery. They're out of Brooklyn, but I visited their Finger Lakes region earlier this year in about October, and they were all built up. One of their beers was called, I think, Smashing Tables in honor of the Bills. Rochester being just the next town over from Buffalo, and I picked up this glass because I said, there's sometimes you want to cheer for some teams outside Philadelphia. The Bills, I get it, and I'm not saying I cheer for them, but I liked having a little piece of that because I enjoyed their flair. I enjoy their mafia. I enjoy the whole persona that they give off. I got no issues with it. That's what they are. I've been up there, and they earn that. And then to watch what happened Monday Night Football this week, I will tell you right now was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life on a professional field. It was when Josh Allen, and we're talking about the Damar Hamlin play, obviously. When Josh Allen was almost crying, had his hands in his nose, I turned it off. My kids are watching. They're 8 and 10, and they were so big into the game. They couldn't wait to see Joey Burr and Josh Allen. I said, get upstairs.
Wow.
It was scary, man. It was really, really scary.
Wow. That's a bold move. I mean, I definitely appreciate that.
And we watched something else.
You don't want to expose them to it right now.
Just something else, just to get them away.
The day were they asking you questions? Were they,
why the game? And at that time, we just didn't have answers. I mean, I really thought the guy might be dead, and I'm just saying because someone's really hurt, and we just gotta, for the safety of the rest of the players, the field's not right. Just anything to get their minds off and watch something else.
Yeah. Wow. So I wasn't tuned in on the game at that point. I started hearing what was going on, and then obviously, you come across Twitter, you see everything, and obviously I went over because of everything. I wanted to see what was going on, and the ambulance was still in the field and going through that whole scenario, and it was a tough spot. It's like one of those things you couldn't look away from, but it's sad, and now everyone's up at night thinking about like what's going on, because there hasn't been something like this, that somebody had to actually be revived on the field from taking a normal blow. Like it's not, this is not something where you're like, oh, like even like you look at what happened to Josh Sweat on Sunday in the Eagles game where, he put his head directly into, I forget who he was going to tackle. I don't know if it was Kamara or Taysom Hill or whatever. But you saw him banging his hand on the ground. And I, was like, he hurt his knee or something, because I didn't see it until the slow motion replay where you see his head just jar right. That is like, oh, that's concussion. That's paralyzation. That's, but this you think like, oh, okay. He's a little winded, and then he gets up and falls down, and you're just like, oh, that's.
But you think concussion. That's the first thing I think.
Like you got up too fast, or
It was wild, and then but like I said, the reactions when they finally were there a little longer than you thought, and you saw tears. I think that's when you saw CPR. Yeah, no players ever thought that they'd see someone trying to resuscitate someone, and it was a really scary situation. I didn't sleep well that whole night. You're right. I think we all were like, this can't be. This can't be. This is entertainment. This is something we love. And it almost brought you to my thought was a boxing ring. We've had some sudden deaths, fatalities in boxing due to the strike at a certain angle or a certain way, blunt impact force. And it just, Hank Gathers obviously came to people's minds. If you been around long enough to remember the days of Loyola Marymount and his sudden cardiac arrest on the court. So it was just really scary. And right now, I don't think we're out of the clear here, but I am hearing encouraging signs. I think Hammond, if he can get through this, it's just going to be such a boost to all the NFL.
The thing about it is, obviously, even if it's not a good person, you still are upset and fear for it. But everything that's been coming out about this kid, I mean, he was a 6th-round pick. He had offers throughout the country. He stayed in Pittsburgh. He has a much younger brother. His father was in jail and then he got out, and then his parents had another kid. He stayed around for the little brother. I mean, we're talking like a 6-year-old, something along those, like 4, 6, 7 years old. So a younger kid. So he's, trying to be a good role model. He, obviously everyone's talking about this GoFundMe that, was a $2,500 goal, is now at $6 or $7 million because everyone's just been, helping his goal out. I mean, it was going up like 100,000 almost like every 15 minutes. It just seemed like everybody was contributing. So it's a good thing to see that people are reaching out and caring. But his mom was at the game. So, the reason why the ambulance didn't leave the stadium as soon as it did, because they had to get her down there. And just that's scary. You go to watch your son play and then, you're going out on a stretcher with him. It's sad. It's sad. It's scary, but, obviously everyone's hoping for him to get better, to heal. I mean, people are, some people go, will he ever play football again? It's not even about that. It's about, is he going to live? Is he going to have a normal life?
Of people, right? It's been the power of people and the power of, people can really turn into amazing things when we all get together and stick together. So it's been, it was something that, I wanted to talk about tonight and just see, where we were, what you were at, because it was, like I said, to me, it was surreal,
Yeah.
And then, hey, thanks for checking in, my man. We're going to be jumping in the Eagles in a second here. One thing I want to ask you as we get here into the NFL Week 18, you hear a lot about what people's opinions are of where they should go with this game. That game was one of the biggest games on the NFL calendar, if not the biggest outside of Philly, Eagles Cowboys on that Christmas Eve. And I'm sitting here thinking, I believe in my heart this game needs to be played. And I don't mean now. I think they should push back the NFL playoffs 1 week, get rid of the bye in between the Super Bowl. It's one of those crazy years. If Kansas City wins this week and beats a pretty bad Vegas team, and the Bills win, because of winning percentage, KC gets the number 1 seed. And I'm sorry, I just deep down inside, I think we need to all play the same amount of games.
Yeah. No, this is not a meaningless game in the least bit. It's, two of the best teams in the AFC coming together. And at some point you have to almost play for him, if anything.
Well, that's true.
Use it as a rallying cry. So I would think I agree with your mindset of bump the, week in between the Super Bowl. You cut that out. You push everything a week back. I don't care if you play Week 18 now, and then you go back and then next week you play that Cincinnati Buffalo
in Week 19.
In Week 19, you're playing the Week 17 game in Week 19.
Yep.
I think you have to continue that. Again, this isn't like one person. It's both teams have a lot riding at stake for it. I mean, obviously the Damar Hamlin thing takes precedent over everything. But at some point, though, even the Buffalo Bills, they're not just going to be okay with losing out on this. There's no point to it at all. I mean, I think for the game, I don't see them even just saying like, yeah, we're going to just take the L on this one, or it changes a lot of the seating. We've seen them cut out the in between Super Bowl week. I forget what it was. I felt like they did it a couple years ago. I don't think it was COVID. It was something before that, but they cut out the week in between for something. They had to do this before. This wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. Hey, good question here. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I think that character you talk about, Skip Bayless, is an absolute buffoon, and he just does things for people to overreact to him. And I thought people actually, going over, but in the same sense, let me say this: I thought people went overboard on what he said. I think he was trying to say, "Hey, this is such a big game," and then his last words were, "But now that seems so irrelevant." I think he was trying to say, "Don't play it," but he just didn't say it the right way. And then he got everything he ever wanted. And that's everybody's reactions. And that's everybody's clicks and retweets and yelling at him and then going on the show the next day. So in the end, I think it was a soap opera that is really just in bad taste and in the bad moment. But I also think people kind of maybe slightly overreacted and didn't read the full words. That just, but he's still an idiot and still a buffoon and still shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah. I just kind of like what we've talked about, like the best trades are the ones that aren't made. Sometimes the best tweets are the ones that aren't sent, in my opinion. It was probably better if he really did it for the drama, then yeah, it's the worst thing. I do have a similar stance with you, but I would probably say this. I think he was, if this were really him, Skip Bayless himself, like not the character, tweeting this out, I think he just worded it incorrectly and the timing of it was awful. I think there probably was good intention behind it. Here's where, and I think that people went overboard. And look, he's earned it. Like he's put himself out there many a times. He's a caricature. He's a figure. Like I think I've heard local people talk about him and say, look, this guy's not the same guy that he was 15 years ago. He's become this, ESPN built him up into this clown. And, some people sell out. Here's what I'll say, though. This happened because he's done these things before.
Yeah.
So it's like he had it coming. And I think that's where you get the overreaction on the other side. But I was willing to give a little bit until today. So yesterday, Shannon Sharpe didn't do the show with him. He obviously didn't want to deal with it.
I still think that's all made up too. But go ahead.
I think so. Now and maybe if this part that I'm about to say is made up, then Shannon's in the wrong too for selling on this. I don't think so though. I don't think so. I don't know if you saw the clip of the intro when Shannon came back to the show today.
Mm-mm.
So they address Shannon. Shannon goes, look, I'm not going to talk about the thing, I'm not going to speculate on this, that, or the third, and I'm not going to talk about why I wasn't here yesterday. But I know Skip did put out a tweet that I hope he'll take down. This is where I lose my credibility with Skip. He goes, I'm not deleting it. It's what I meant. And Shannon looks at him and he goes, seriously, like I'm doing my monologue here, saying how I felt about this. This was supposed to be about Damar Hamlin, and then you can't even shut up for 5 minutes, and you had to interrupt, and you had to say something like that, and he just stopped talking. He's like, "All right, Jenny," or whoever the girl was. He's like, he goes, "I can't even do this." He goes, "If that's for show, then bad on Shannon. It's bad on Skip, regardless." But the fact that he had to put that in there, the fact that he had to this is the part where you take some accountability. And you have to say, you know what? Maybe the timing wasn't great. I messed up, and I'm not going to say anything further about from here. But the fact that he had to say, I still believe that tweet, and nobody had a problem with that tweet, then that's where it's like, all right, dude, now you're out. Now you can't have sympathy because you've now either really made this a clown show or you really are that insensitive and stupid.
Yeah, and I'm with you on all of that. Shannon Sharpe talks over him every single show for the longest time possible. So for him to let Skip cut him off and then just give up is an absolute show to me too. So it's an absolute.
Yeah. I think it is show, but I also think he was saying that's really Skip. You had to say something right now.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. Listen,
it's all I know.
And I'll get off this in 1 second because I don't. But
we really are giving too much time to.
I just want to say about the whole situation. There's too many people out there trying to either gain clout or be clout demons or whatever, from a young man almost dying on the football field.
It's
To the fact that you were actually people are sitting there calling like Ryan Clark and Booger and all these guys heroes for their tweets. Nobody's a hero except for the people that were on the field
yeah,
resuscitating that man, doing their darn best with the CPR and all the tools that they had to get his heart moving again. Those are the heroes, not people out there tweeting about it.
So, and we're not going to get too into this, I don't think, but social media, this is where sometimes it goes against. It's people are looking for that. I mean, there's other things that I've seen that I'm just like, really, it just seems in poor taste, or just seems like you're doing it for show more than for what the actual point is. I like to tweet about sports and what's going on, stuff like that. I just really don't even put much out there because I don't want people thinking that I'm baiting for something or whatever. Like, I know what my true thoughts are and everything like that. So it's definitely a different day and age that we live in. And I agree with you. I think it's a lot of things are for clout nowadays, and it's kind of sad. Like,
yeah, and to like, I don't know, ESPN is the worst. So I'll just leave it at that. And now Fox ain't much better with those two talking.
Yeah,
and I got it all more on Skip than Duchenne. All I'm getting at is he's playing a game right now too.
Yeah, and that's sad.
Yeah, but all right, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles and what was a very, very disappointing game last week versus the New Orleans Saints. And it gets so weird because I felt in the back of my head, I said, they could really suck this up this week because of the way they lost to Dallas. No, they won't do that. They've beaten the Saints the past couple of years here, and they know how to play this team. And that first drive told me anything I needed to know. It was Washington Commanders all over again.
Yep.
Let a team just absolutely dominate. Now, the defense ended up playing well. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
And the offense really didn't have anything to help out until, we got into the third quarter. But to give that team life, to give that team energy, and to let them go to half with a 13-0 lead, it was just disgusting. And it starts with the head coach to me. Minshew stinks. Okay. As much as we have that little mania in us, me, you, Mark, and like him, that was a horrendous performance. Horrendous. But in the end, that starts with the coach. Didn't run the ball again. Decided he's going to go out there and just get his quarterback sacked 3 times in the first 6 dropbacks. And it's just, I don't get what this guy trying to do. When Miles Sanders ran it, he ran it for about 5 yards a pop. But that's not enough for him. He's got to go out and do all these fancy things. Maybe it's not all him. Maybe it's Steichen too. But
it's
to me,
Jeffrey, I need a passing quarterback.
Yeah. So we're off and going with one bad defensive series. The rest of the game, they played really well. And then the offense just stunk it completely up. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see A.J. Brown tank around at the end of the game that ended up in a pick 6. But horrible pass, horrible decision. Why were we throwing a 3-yard slant from the 10-yard line anyway? Middle field. I can get into so many things, but I am going to tell you, it's not the way to end such a magical season. And the injuries are starting to mount up, and the energy is starting to look bad. Yeah. And I'm getting a little nervous.
It doesn't feel good. It definitely doesn't feel good. I mean, the play calling was absolutely terrible. They go first drive, they go all pass, 3 and out. Second drive, they go all run, 3 and out. It's like, look, what you have to do is sprinkle things in. Start the game with a run. Just get an idea for what their run defense is. Make it happen. See those kinds of things. But they didn't do that. They just kind of wanted to make it happen. They were like, they tried to overcorrect each time, and it just wasn't happening. Obviously that first drive of the game, that's a backbreaker. But the Saints kept them in it too. Like 13-0. It should have been way. It should have been way worse.
Well, Dalton throws the pick. He throws the pick right near half. Who gets that? Epps, was it?
Josiah Scott.
Scott. Yep. And that was huge because that was 16-0 at the worst, probably 20-0. Yeah, I mean, Adam's bringing up a point. They tried to have Minshew play too much like Jalen. Yeah, I get you with the RPO, and they did, but I don't know. I can agree with that. Yeah, they did make it
Yeah,
too
they
much.
wanted to make him fit into that same type of quarterback, but it's just not there. Like you got to hit or miss. I forget who said it. Somebody was like, "There's a reason why they're backup quarterbacks because they're inconsistent." Like he had a good game against Dallas, but the defense didn't have a good game. Defense had a good game against New Orleans, and the offense was just terrible.
Hmm.
And you can't, a lot of people are blaming the defense. I think that first drive they could have been better, but for the most part, they did have a good game. They gave up one offensive touchdown, so I can't fully be mad at them.
I do think Hurts is playing and starting, and I do think
He has to.
he'll be in the game as long as the game
Mhm.
has some meaning.
Yeah,
So I think he goes. So it's interesting, and we can jump right into that. The
yeah,
Giants came out today and said that we're playing. Rest is for the off season. So here's where I might take on that from a Giants perspective. And I got Giants friends and stuff that are like, this is crazy. No way. Why get them hurt? This means nothing to us. But there's some solace in kind of playing your guys the right way. I just really do believe in it. And I do think they're going to play quite a bit. But if the Eagles can open up some type of lead, I think the Giants starters start going down and the Eagles starters start going down. So to answer your question, I'd be prepared for a full game of Hurts. And I
yeah,
think they're preparing for a full game of it
yeah. They should.
and back it off maybe third, fourth quarter if it starts to look comfortable.
You get like a 2 touchdown, like 14, 17, 20-point lead in
Yeah.
the third. Then you say, all right, we'll see how that's going. Because I agree with you. I think that the Giants would have to be smart to pull some of their guys out. There was also something that came out today. I think a reporter referenced like when the Eagles kept their starters in for a game that, made the Giants miss the playoffs.
Well,
And
yes.
God,
No, you're right. It was 2 years ago versus the Commanders.
yeah,
Hurts was starting, and we pulled him in the fourth quarter for that.
because we won the
What
draft.
was that white dude's name? Yeah, and I don't think Peterson wanted.
Sudfeld? No,
Who's that?
not Sudfeld.
Yes, Sudfeld.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, and I don't think Peterson wanted to do it. Peterson got fired
yeah,
next week.
yeah.
No, I think that has something to do with the Giants'
And
motivation a
but
little.
but there was that, and then they talked about, I think back in 07 about something with the Patriots and a game that they did something similar. They actually played their starters. He goes, it doesn't. I wasn't here in 07. So I think if I'm reading between the lines, I also think he's like, I'm going to do what's best for my team.
Yeah.
So I think he might. I think you'll see the starters out there for at least the first half, depending on, like you said, depending on where the game is. I think he's going to be quick to pull his guys, but that's not how I want to win. Regardless, like I know, like they need a win. It's going to feel cheap. I mean, regardless, I want that bye, regardless of what
Yeah.
happened, because they played well enough to at least get them to this point. And you did lose your MVP starting quarterback for 2 weeks. They've been on a little bit of a slide. I would like it if the Giants played their starters legitimately and they tried, and the Eagles, cleaned them like they did a couple weeks ago. I really hope that that's the case. Don't know if it's going to be, but that would be a big momentum boost. We need to see some life now, because backing into the playoffs is one of the worst things that you can do. And again, depending on what the scenario is with the Buffalo Bills issue, if they do extend the season 2 weeks now and say Hurts only plays a half, is he fresh? Is he or not? Is he fresh? Is he going to be game ready? Is he going to get enough exposure to the field? That's going to be interesting.
It is interesting, and it will. We're going to see it quick. We're going to see it right away. I think the Eagles have a pretty large gap between them and Giants. Personally, I think they're that much better. They showed it in game one. The Giants have come away. Everybody's a little pumped up. Let's look what they did in the past 3 weeks. They beat a dead Commanders team barely at the end when they called a horrible, man not on the line in Terry McLaurin on that Monday
Yeah.
night game. Then they go and almost beat the Vikings, who we just saw get absolutely blown through. Now have a negative point differential sitting there at 12-3. I'm sorry, 12-4. And now then they beat the Colts, who are horrific. I mean, just horrific. Of a team with Jeff Saturday there. They won the first game he coached. Every other game they've been absolutely blown out, except the Eagles barely beat them. But I'm just trying to tell you the Giants might have this little hype and momentum going right now. Eagles are still that much better.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just precaution and what's going on with it, but
yeah. No, and the point spread is that big. I agree, and I think he kind of alludes to the point. Maybe Daboll is saying he's going to play him, like Mark's alluding to, for a half. Maybe he's just saying he's going to play him, so we prepare for him and waste a lot of our energy, and then all of a sudden just pull him as it starts. We'll see. The Giants really cannot improve on their seeding, so they're set in the 5. I'm sorry, I take back 6. Now with all these playoff teams, the 7th is still up for play, and the 5th looks like it's going to be the Cowboys. So they're set in the 6th, and they're going to Minnesota or San Francisco is where they're headed.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. It's not the ideal way that we want to head into the playoffs, but if they get the win, see some starters for the Giants, Hurts looks fresh, I'll be happy.
Yeah, let me look at this. So when we went into 2018, well, I'm sorry, it was the 2017 Eagles season.
Yeah, and everything is kind of lining up the same way.
I really
think about it.
It's so similar.
It is.
And the regular season, the last we won with Foles. I remember that on December 17th at New York. But then we struggled with Oakland, barely won that game, and then lost
Christmas. Yep.
Yeah, and then lost to Dallas and finished 13-3. If we can clean up this game, go 14-3, we'll be very similar rolling into the season as that one was. Only difference is we'll actually have a starting quarterback this time around.
Yeah. I mean, the thing was, we went on, essentially, it's kind of like the same ebbs and flows. The Eagles, the 2018 team, the 17 team, did we lose like our second game of the season?
Yeah.
Or something like that? Right. So obviously we were under, what did we go, 9-0 this year or 8-0 before Washington? I think it was 9-0. I think it was 9-0, and then we lost to Washington. Essentially, the Eagles kind of did a similar thing at the time, had some really big wins. And then the Eagles went on a tear. And that's kind of what they did this year, too. I remember because I went to the Denver game in the Super Bowl year. We won we were winning games like 55-10 against San Francisco, Denver. And then this year we had the stretch where we went gangbusters on Tennessee. We scored a lot against Green Bay. There was a game before Tennessee, I think, too, after the Washington loss, or maybe it was Tennessee, then Green Bay, then somebody else. We went on a tear, and then things started to slow down again. Jalen Hurts gets hurt. We're slowing down. Hopefully, it kind of draws the same conclusion, except like you said, this time we actually have the starting quarterback. We'll get him back healthy, but it is very eerily similar to the way that things went down in 17.
It does feel that way. And in that last game, that one really didn't mean anything for the Eagles. This one does. So that's why this one will play out a little differently. So let's get into it. We're just about at that halfway point of the show. Eagles, Giants. We're both saying Hurts plays. C shows us the spread. Mark, what do you got this weekend?
I think I have the number around the spread. I would say in like that 10 to 14 point range, the Eagles should win. I hope, like I said, I really hope that the Giants play their starters for a decent amount and like we actually get like decent gameplay. I really don't want, I almost don't want it to be an absolute rout. As if they're playing all their second teamers and we're playing all our first. excuse me, because I don't think that would. I mean, it'd be good for Hurts to get the reps and to get everybody going, but like off of what? Um, so I hope there's a nice mix there. But with that being said, I think the Eagles win. I would say 31. I'm actually going to go 31-17. So it's actually, yeah, 31-17.
I like it. I think the Eagles showed me enough in that last time they faced the Giants that they really do have a good recipe for how to kind of keep the Giants at bay there. They're on this epic sack run. Was it like 6 games in a row of 6+ sacks?
Yep.
Putting up numbers that teams haven't seen since the 80s with the sack totals the Eagles are getting when sacks were really officially became a stat of record. So I think they're going to be able to challenge Daniel Jones, and they're going to be able to create some pressure and get him on the ground. And they've done pretty well against Saquon in past games that I have the confidence that they'll be able to kind of keep him at bay. And this is all assuming he plays a little bit, right? So I think the defense will be able to perform similarly to what we saw in the Saints game. And then offensively, we're going to get this thing cranking again. We're going to get this thing rolling. I don't think we'll see maybe as much, I guess, running maybe as we've seen it Hurts in the past. Maybe it's a little dial back on the RPOs and let's just sling it, rip it, and hit them on the ground as well, punch them in the mouth. And then I'm not far off from you. I go 31-13. Cease is coming in with a punch here of 34-13. And I think we sit here and have this nice little bye, maybe a 2-week bye, depending on what the NFL decides on the Bengals-Bills game. And this will do the Eagles really, really well to get that 1 seed. If they have to sit there and play a wild card game in Tampa, I think they win it. But, man, it just makes everything that much harder. This means everything this weekend.
Yeah, no, and it has to. It absolutely has to. We can't take this for granted. If they, honestly, I'll tell you this, my friends and I were already pissy when we were watching the game Sunday, but I said, if they happen not to win the conference and they end up falling into that 5 spot, I'm like, they're going to get bounced in the first round. Forget about it.
It could.
And it really could, because I think home field advantage is huge for them. And to backtrack into the playoffs like that, it's almost the worst thing you could do. I mean,
yep.
You go against the teams that are, surging at the right time, they'll eat you up. Like San Fran, for example, they're surging at the right time. Like there's no what's about it. So, you go against a team like that, forget it. So, yeah, this is an absolute must. And I think they will. They'll pull out all the stops and, they'll get creative and funky with it and, they'll make it work. It's just frustrating that we're at this situation.
No, I like it. Yeah, and it is frustrating. But in the end, seasons are roller coasters. There wasn't going to be, all these, unicorns and ponies. It wasn't going to be that easy in 16-1. We were going to hit a bump. That bump just needs to be a soft speed bump in there. It needs to be behind it.
It's a little bigger than we thought.
It's bigger than we thought because, and again, Minshew twice. And, not so much that like he was, you look at his numbers, it doesn't look horrible. But in both games, I mean, what did it end up being? 7 turnovers or something like that? Can't afford it. Can't just can't. Just can't. All right.
And real quick, just the defense, what they gave up to Dallas, like that's why. Like, if you have 2 really good defensive games and you lose both with Minshew at quarterback and you're getting Hurts back, that's one thing. And even though the defense had a good game on Sunday against the Saints, it was Andy Dalton. It was a Saints offense that's not that great. You still don't have a good taste in your mouth. So that's why we need to see them have a good game really on both sides of the ball in a decent matchup to make us feel better going into the playoffs.
1,000%. And talking about the playoffs, that's what's coming up this week. Well, after this week, there's a lot still unsettled. I want to say there are, what we're going to say, 4 teams in the AFC, 5 teams in the AFC that have clinched. It looks like we still got to decide the AFC South and 1 AFC wild card. NFC, 1 more team can get in because the Tampa did clinch last week, 3rd division. but it's not just one team can get in. There's like 4 fighting for that final spot with the Seahawks, Lions, Packers. No, so Commanders are out now. So those 3 are fighting for it.
Yeah, because Commanders and Saints were eliminated last week.
Yeah, AFC, you still got, Dolphins alive. You got Patriots alive. A lot of teams fighting for that last spot. So it's going to be a fun weekend. I remember last year, I think almost everything was decided, and 18 was a dud. Yeah. Not this week. There's going to be a lot of good games going on. Do I think the Steelers another team fighting it? Listen, the Packers are going to get in.
Yeah,
they're just going to. I like the Lions. I think the Lions can beat the crap out of them, but that coach always does something stupid at some point in the game that just costs them the game. I don't think he's learned it yet, and I think the Lions. I mean, that guy's been a thorn in the side back to Hail Marys in the dome, and that guy being Rodgers. Yeah. I think he finds a way to get it done. I think the Packers get in on the other side. I think the Steelers need the Jets to beat the Dolphins because the Dolphins beat the Steelers. So I'm going to say no on the Steelers, yes on the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers, it feels like it's their road. And I think they even said it was pretty much if they took care of business against Minnesota and Detroit, they're in. So, yeah. And this is kind of what Aaron Rodgers was pushing towards and, of course, made it happen some way, somehow. But I think that game is going to be interesting.
Very. All right, let's get into some of our 3-packs here on a crazy, wild, final weekend. 2 games on Saturday, KC, Vegas, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and then a full slate Sunday. Nothing lingering into Monday. Mark, as always, I'm going to let you lead it off here. You did a little prep work. I saw you working pre-show. What do you got?
Well, I hope you didn't take my picks last week because last week I said I do really well when I have a bad week before. I had 2 bad weeks in a row, but we're getting back into it. We're going to go this week. Do what you will with these picks. I feel a little better about these picks this week. A game that you've mentioned, Jets at Dolphins. You said the Steelers need the Jets to beat the Dolphins, I believe. And I believe that the Jets will win. The Jets are -1 at the Dolphins. The Dolphins thing is crazy with Tua, all the concussions, and that's somebody, it's been tough for him. They've really fallen hard. The sky fell out from under them. It does have to do with where Tua is, and I forget. And Bridgewater's hurt too, so they signed Mike Glennon, I believe.
Skyler, yep.
Yeah, and they signed Mike Glennon off the streets to be there for them. So Jets -1 at Miami. I like this. The Jets play with some fight, and the Dolphins just everything's falling out from under them.
They really are, and I think, I said it, and I'm pretty vocal about it. I think that coach is a clown. Yep. I think he thinks he's cool, thinks he wants to be the players' friends and listen to hip hop and make jokes and talk about how cute other coaches are. Look, this isn't the WWE. And unfortunately, he's a bad coach for the safety of his quarterback. So I'm with you. I think it's unraveled, and it's unraveled fast. So earlier I said, maybe Steelers don't get in because I forgot Skylar Thompson's going. So I think you got a good pick there. I'm going to go to one game that doesn't make any sense to me. And usually I'd play this, the line's telling me something, but I'm not. I'm going to play it a different way. I'm looking at the Broncos-Chargers game here. Broncos played the Chiefs tough once again, but tough wasn't enough to get a W.
I was wrong about that.
Yeah, couldn't. Let's Ride just didn't cook, and in the end, threw a pick late, and there are 2.5-point favorites. The Dolphins are against the Chargers, and a lot of that is speculation. The Chargers don't have much to play for, but in my opinion, they still do have a little bit to play for. We'll know a lot better after the Cincinnati game at 1:00. So this pick is going with this in mind. If Baltimore wins that early game, the Chargers will have something to play for. They want to get in that 5 seed. Would you rather play the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans winner,
yeah,
or the Cincinnati Bengals? Pretty easy. I'll
Pretty,
play for something to go play one of those two other teams.
yeah.
So I'll take them plus 2.5 with the assumption that maybe Baltimore pulls it off
Yeah.
and makes it really interesting for the Chargers to try and sit there and try and win that 5 seed.
I mean, that definitely 100% makes sense. You don't take your chances if you can get Jacksonville. Or
Yeah.
And
I know this spread is all based upon that 1 o'clock game going Cincinnati's way, and I get it can. There's just Baltimore, Cincinnati is not, and Lamar looks like he'll be back. I think that's
right. It's not a shoe-in.
Yep.
In that scenario, it's a tough AFC North game. 100% can see that being a real game. And who knows where Cincinnati's head is at with everything that's been going on as them being, there on Monday night. So, I mean, and the thing is, we don't know, the way that the Bills and the Bengals are going to handle things going forward. Where's their head at? They played, less than a quarter of football and they had to witness what happened. And speaking of, I'm going to touch that game. New England Patriots are at the Buffalo Bills. This is, who knows? I mean, let's be real. Nothing is set in stone. Whether they're even going to play. Is the NFL going to treat Buffalo differently? I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on here. But if Buffalo is able to regroup and get themselves together, the line is -7, and I think they're playing for a lot, and I think they're playing for DeMar. So to me, especially with things still being uncertain, they're going to go out there and they're going to fight. They're going to play with a lot of emotion. Now, sometimes that emotion can get the best of you, but I think that Sean McDermott is going to have his team in the right place. And by the way, going back to the whole scenario, which we didn't really discuss upon, there's a lot of debate on, was it, did the NFL really say like 5 minutes and you warm up, or
I believe they did.
You believe they did?
I believe they did. Now, I don't love ESPN. I actually hate ESPN.
Right.
But I believe that
they're doing what they were told. I don't think they would go rogue.
And I don't think the NFL is saying 5 minutes warm up and we're definitely playing, but stay warm is what I think they were trying to tell people.
Yeah. We're still going to go with this, but credit to the head coaches. I think the thing is, obviously, Buffalo was going to take their time, but I think you see Zach Taylor walk across the field and be like, where are you at, coach? What's going on? What do you want to do about this? I really think, from what it seems like, even him walking over to the locker room, I think he was like, it's your call. It's your team. I know we were all out there, but look, I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt. If you can't roll, we're not doing this. So I got to give a lot of credit to him, Zach Taylor, and both of the coaches. And you could see that they were really, with something so scary like that, they had their, their team's emotions in their head. Because one thing that I thought immediately when this was going on, it just kind of comes back to you're risking more injury by putting those guys back out there because they don't get warm. They don't warm up correctly, and they're not mentally there. You miss a block and say somebody was ready for the play and the one person's not, and you get this flash of what you saw happen. You look at him and he's not breathing, and then it kind of jars you and you're thinking how am I playing this right now? If more guys got injured, I really could have seen more injury had they kept playing that game. Anyway, I go back and say the Bills are going to be emotional, and I think they're going to be emotionally charged in a good way. And I would love to see that number go down to 6.5 because of the, pull that reverse hook. But I like the Bills to take care of business against the Pats.
All right. I like it. I do think win one for DeMar, especially if his condition improves, which we're praying for over these next few days. So good pick. One that I just, we've been watching it and it's really starting to kind of materialize in front of us, and it's made us realize maybe we cannot get all the good things sometimes, and that is those New Orleans Saints. And I think they're going to take care of business again this week, finish the season 8-9, and make our once beloved crown jewel of a top 10 pick turn into a teens pick, and that's okay.
I
we'll
mean,
see.
it's better than nothing, but yeah.
It's better than nothing. It'll be right about what we traded away last year, but it's still going to be really worth something. They'll end up right around 15 or so, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think the Saints will cover this week against Carolina. Carolina, for what it's worth, really did play Tampa hard last week and have been playing great, inspired football under head coach or, acting head coach Steve Wilkes. And then this Saints team has found a formula that's worked for them in the past few weeks, and it started on the defensive line and the secondary now with Lattimore back that makes them even a little more difficult. You saw his impact on the game last week. So I think the Saints do pull this one out -3 against Carolina.
Well, I'm going to hope that Carolina does what they did against Tampa Bay. I mean, the thing is, they've been playing inspired football, and they've really played for Steve Wilkes. You've seen a lot of DJ Moore. Even Darnold as their quarterback has been, getting the job done for them. I don't love your pick because of what it means.
No, I want Carolina to win.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But I wouldn't be surprised. But also, I legitimately could see Carolina winning this game. I really can. So not poo-pooing your pick, but just, try being the voice of reason for the people. Because, the one thing is, if the Saints made the playoffs, I mean, I was going to lose it, like, because of that win. If they, we're still in contention after beating us, I was going to be because one, they get into the playoffs and they beat us and take us away from clinching now. Yeah, I was going to be even more livid, but it kind of worked out that things were working out better for other teams. So at least, and the thing is, if they got into the playoffs, if they were in the playoffs, that pick is now 19 at the minimum.
Right. And then with these other 8 and 9 teams, or 9 and 8, maybe in the AFC that don't make it, even if they get to 8 and 9, I think we're going to be 14-15, which isn't.
No. But I'm just saying, if there was a possibility of them getting into the playoffs, I would have really going from at one point like 3 or 5. You know what I mean? It's so I digress.
Well, it's your third pick.
It is. I was just realizing as I was saying that. So we allude to the game of the week that got flexed into Sunday Night Football. We have the Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers. I completely agree with you that the Packers are going to the playoffs. I completely agree with you that the Packers are going to win the game. And I know you didn't make a judgment on this part, but the Detroit Lions at 4.5-point underdogs, I'll take it. I think they're going to play them tough. Remember, this is a team that took Buffalo to the very end. This is a team that plays really hard. And I agree with your notion that Campbell usually does something to lose the game when they have a real chance of winning it. So in my estimation, I think the Lions are going to play hard. I know they don't, it's going to take a couple. I believe it would take a couple things for them to get in. And right, they're still a possible, like you said, Lions.
They need the Seahawks to lose.
Yeah,
don't know by kickoff if they have a chance or not.
Yeah, I think, but even regardless, even if the Seahawks lose, I still think that the Lions will play hard because they're just going to say, "Look, this is what we're going to go off of moving forward. Everything's going to be fine with Dan Campbell. They have some restored faith in Goff, and are they able to get somebody or draft somebody? But I think they're going to play the Packers tough because the Packers also are coming off of a win against Miami that, Tua was seeing double, and then they just completely wrecked the Vikings. So they're going to be full of themselves. I think the Lions are going to say, we're not going out like this.
Yep.
I like the Lions at +4.5.
Okay. I like it. I'm going to go to the game that does matter for those Detroit Lions, and that's the Los Angeles Rams, Seattle Seahawks. Here's what the Seahawks were at one point. They were like a 90% fave to make the playoffs, 6-3, looking well, 2-5 in their last 7, but they did squeak one out. I say squeak, but they did dominate the game last week against the Jets and win that one to give them this fighting chance to make the playoffs this week by beating a beat down, trodden over, laying for dead Los Angeles Rams. But that's not the way Sean McVay coaches. That's not the way my boy Baker cooks it up. They're going to fight. They fought the other week against Denver. They fought the other week when they won that Sunday night or Monday night game, I want to say, when Baker came back and won that game against the Raiders. They had a little less in the tank last week. That's okay. But in the end, this team's showing some spirit. And I think the spirit's going to be enough to at least keep them in this game against Seattle. Seattle's not what they were at the beginning of the year. Geno is back to being what Geno was. Kenneth Walker is running his best, and he's got a good chance for 1,000 yards. But, they're definitely, they're going slow into this playoffs, and that's not the way you want to go. So I'll take the Rams plus 6.5 with a chance for an outright. We've seen it before, Mark. We've seen the miracles when the Raiders went down and beat the Bucs and got us in backdoor. Then we beat the Cowboys. We saw the other year when the Bears played for nothing and beat the Minnesota Vikings to get us in. We've seen some crazy things.
Everyone loves this game. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think I think the Rams are going to be in this one.
I think so. I like that. I mean, yeah, they're playing, Baker's kind of playing for his NFL life. And it's showing.
He is. I think he's playing to be an NFL backup, but
right. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But he can get a good paying backup job somewhere. And that's essentially where, he's going at.
And it might be there. But so no, I'm with you. And here's the thing. Just let's take a perspective that somehow the NFL wants the perfect picture. It would be Seattle losing, and it would be Detroit and Green Bay for whoever wins gets in. So I'm not saying they fix games, and I'm not saying they make results happen, but it sure would make a good story that they'd love to have.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of seen the Seahawks have kind of really fallen off course as of late.
Yeah, they're
kind of coming back down the reality.
All right, that wraps up NFL Week 18. As we move on here, let me ask you a question. Did you play in any fantasy football championship week?
I did, and let's just say this past Sunday was not a good week for me.
Did it matter?
Go ahead.
It didn't matter what happened Monday night then?
No, it didn't. I had Devin Singletary that I actually kept on the bench. But full disclosure, PPR league, I think I lost 236 to 84. It was that bad. I went against, I'm telling you, my opponent, I think, had every elite player. He had Mike Evans, who had 51 points. Mahomes had 31. McKinnon had 22. So, all those touchdowns.
Did he have Ayuk? It sounds, or Adams? Those guys.
Yeah, Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
That's another big one. Austin Eckler, I think, was in the 20s. So it was definitely the Giants had 14 points because of an interception touchdown. So I went against everybody. And, of course, on my end, Justin Jefferson had 2.5 points. Like, it's just one of those things where everything just went wrong. I mean, probably Jared Goff that had 25 points was my best player. Everybody else was pretty much in single digits. So, I made it further along than I thought I would. Got a nice little payout for coming in second place.
Yeah.
But, just wasn't my week, and it just was my opponent's week. It was rough going. How about you?
I was in 2 championships. One of them, I was up 20 going into Monday night. I had Josh Allen and T. Higgins. He had Chase. Oh, no, Diggs. So we pretty much called that a win. And then the other one, I was down 70, and I had Burrow, Higgins, Diggs left. I actually ended up conceding, but we're making a deal on the side. So it's like he'll get a little bit more of the money, but he can call himself first place. But I thought that was a fair way to do it. I think we split it like 60-40.
The one thing I've been wondering, because my friends and I, well, not me, because not in my one league, have been like, I guess my question is, why is everyone trying to figure it out right now? Like, I mean, I think
I agree.
Wait.
You can still wait. I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess yours kind of makes sense because it was already,
they're about done. And the reason reason I figured out the one that I was down, but we went 60-40 split. We actually are playing a side pot in week 18. So we wanted to figure it out now and just said, let's go play week 18 for an
Right.
extra
And see who
400
earned it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
but no, I had some friends come by my desk today at work, and it was multiple people asked me what I would do. I said I would wait. I said exactly what if it meant something you couldn't figure it out yet, wait.
Yeah. But,
Decide, but let people know that you're going to wait and see if they're going to play the Bengals Bills game, because that's really what it is.
That's what it's about, right?
If they never want to play that game, then you got like 7-8 different options.
Yeah.
Mine would be make the teams figure it out or use stats from games played this week to retroactive. But it is an interesting situation. But I think everybody can agree that it's about bringing that kid back to life.
Yeah, no, of course.
We can figure it all out.
Yeah. And you know what? That's one thing that via social media I didn't hear anybody really talk about, which was good.
Yes.
You weren't like, oh, my fantasy. Like, at least like for the normal common folk, like everybody had their perspective in the right place. And I was happy to see that. Like, they weren't like, even like the broadcast and stuff, like nobody ever said anything about fantasy implications, because as a general public, the general consensus is that week 17, the week before the last week of the season, is the championships for all of these things.
Yeah.
So obviously, like in your group text and stuff like that, I totally get it. But the fact that they didn't touch on that or betting, like none of the broadcasts did and stuff like that, they really didn't get into that. I was happy to see that, because yes, that stuff kind of runs our lives now, but at the same time, like, we do have some respect and we do have some understanding. And I think for the most part, you saw a lot of good things. Again, reactions and, some people doing things for clout, not so much, but for the most part, you saw a lot of good in humanity.
Yeah, I agree. So wrap this show up with a 10-9-8 76ers. You talked with him Wednesday earlier. You got the swag going. Hey, this team had a little medal tonight, found a way to beat the Indiana Pacers. They had the lead the whole game, then choked as usual, and then we're able to squeeze out a win in overtime. 3-1 now in the year in overtime, and pretty impressive just from a stance or a perspective that Joel Embiid did not play with his foot injury, so they had to win one for their captain, for their MVP, and they were able to pull that out. And I think a couple guys had big games. Maxey coming back getting 17 tonight was nice to see. Melton drops 19, Harris 19, Harden 26. Really,
Harold had 19, surprisingly.
Who was that?
Montrez.
Oh God, I hate that guy.
I know.
I saw he got 19, and the whole press conference afterwards was about how he didn't play the other day and was pissed off and moping around.
Oh yeah.
So what does Doc do? He plays him over Paul Reed because he doesn't want to get yelled at. Good job, Montrez. Good job. No, dude, I don't like him. Bring me back some Andre Drummond. Like, give me a guy that's just going to get in there and grab some boards.
Yeah.
I never liked Dwight Howard, and I didn't like this Montrez. Give me some other guys that know they stink, but don't sit there and act like they don't.
Right.
But anyway, big win tonight. You get to catch any of it?
I did. The one thing is I was watching most of the game on mute, but all of a sudden I was watching. They were up big. They were up as much as I would say probably like 14 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then before I was with family, and then I turned and looked, and I'm like, wait, this game's within 4. Oh wait, now it's tied. Oh wait, now we're going to overtime. Like what? Like what in the hell? So frustrating, yes. But glad to see they're at least pulling these out. Within these, the winning streak and the, even the past couple games after, like, they've had some nail biters and some close ones that they've actually been able to, dig out. They're not blowing these ones. So it's good to see. And obviously the scenario is a little different with them beat out. But when you have, 14-point leads in the third and fourth, like, we're losing them a little too easily for my liking, but that's a Doc Rivers coach team.
Yeah, true.
It's really what it is. And they still are winning too much for them to even consider making a change.
No, they aren't. And I think this puts the season high borderline of 9 wins over 500. So coming out, they got to that 8 in a row on the you know that they had. Oh, then they won Christmas Day, so that gave them 9, didn't? Oh, well, whatever it was. But
I thought that Christmas Day was 7.
oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It was 6 in a row at home. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, they're 12 in a row at home now.
I meant that one stretch was 6 in a row. And Christmas made it 7.
That was
You're right.
Yeah.
And then they got kind of hung up against Washington, hung up against New Orleans, and you're like, oh, but now they come back and won. And what, they've won 3 in a row since that. So a nice kind of rebound here.
I think they beat New Orleans and then they won tonight.
Well, OKC was in the middle too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about OKC. Yeah.
Yeah. So they won 3 in a row. Got to that high level mark on the season. Got some guys back. They're starting to play fully healthy. I got to ask you this. We talked about it before, but after seeing them in the past 3 games, when everybody's healthy, everybody's got their full wind. Where does Maxey fit in on this team?
Where do I think he should fit in? I think they should play him off the bench, get him going. I think
Agreed.
To settle him back in.
I agree. It doesn't matter if you start or what. I mean, Poole is such an important player for the Warriors, but he was a 6-man. We've seen so many instances. You don't have to start. Get going against that second team. 100% agree. And finish the game in the fourth quarter. Be part of the finishing team. I'm fine with that.
He's still going to get the minutes. That he's going to be 6-man and he's going to play 20 minutes a game. Like he played 37 minutes tonight. He's still going to play 37, 38 minutes a night. They're going to need him. And look, Harden's old. Like that, if anything, he can slide into that spot if need be. Like I absolutely think they should work him off the bench as a 6-man.
I agree.
With just a lot of playing time.
I agree. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Melton. But I think he's the type of player that doesn't need volume. Can find his spots and his spot ups. And then, when you take Harden out with 6-7 minutes in the first quarter and let Maxey come in and rip it, then take Joe out at the end of the first and Harden comes right back in, you're always going to have 2 of those 3 playing and then 3 of those 3 playing in some core times, like end of the first half, end of the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so good stuff. The Sixers at least giving us some fight, but, I'll tell you what, it gets a little scary up top when I'm seeing the Brooklyn Nets win 12 in a row, and I'm like, oh man, they're actually starting to play for something.
Yeah, but the Brooklyn Nets are always they're a case study, and we'll see what happens with them. Who's there? Who's not? Is Durant hurt? Does Kyrie, exodus? That their situation always changes. Now it is scary because right now you're seeing what they were supposed to be the whole time.
You are.
Whether that lasts or not, nobody knows. They don't even know.
No, they don't know it at all. And is it just a coaching switch? I don't think so. So we'll see. We'll see. But they are playing very well, and they've catapulted to the top of the Eastern Conference now, right there with Boston. After Boston got their butts whooped by OKC the other day. So basketball becoming very interesting. We're sitting in the 5 seed, kind of where we were last year, but I think we're going to end up right around that 4-ish, and we're going to be playing like Cleveland is really where I see this ending up.
Yeah.
Which
would absolutely be a really interesting matchup for them.
After watching Spider go for 71.
You got Donovan Mitchell playing at his peak.
Right and now. Garland's a mess, and then they're tall players like Jared Allen, even when K Love comes in, but Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
They're good.
They're deep. So, they're deep. They got a good young team that, half those guys, Jared Allen's, and I was just like, like when he was with Brooklyn, I was like, whatever. It works there. They've made it work in Cleveland.
It does. So going to be interesting with the Sixers here as they start to play a little better. And like you said, the key to this is it's Doc's team.
Yeah.
And they're not going anywhere.
They go as far as Doc takes them, and that's not too far. So it's tough. I mean, look, I'm not counting out the season. It's just the writing is on the wall. Until they show something different, it's hard to see otherwise. But we're going to be hopeful and maybe see if they do something at the deadline. I think that would be interesting to see if they bolster this team. But I don't, to be honest, as of right now, I would say he's not going anywhere this year. Remember we were talking about this, like, what do you think? And we talked about that home stretch where they had 7 games in a row there. And, he was like, well, I don't think we'll win all of them. And they win all of them. And then they, take care of business on the road. And, they're winning games. He's here. I really don't think with his pedigree, what he's done in his career, winning 1 championship, it would take them a massive losing streak of like 10 plus, I think, for them to even consider ripping it. So be ready. He's here to stay for this year.
He is, and that means we get more Montrez, who I can't stand, and more PJ Tucker. But hey, we'll have to deal with it and see if the Sixers can kind of win his way, which is the way that a lot of us have fears. We got the Bulls, double Pistons, Thunder, Jazz, Lakers over the next 6 games. That's 5-1.
Yeah, that's screams at the time. Yep.
I'm hoping that's 5-1, and then then it gets a little tougher as we travel to Clippers, Blazers, Kings. And then we really get into a stretch here with the Nets and Nuggets coming into town. So got to take advantage of these next 6 games. Pacers are not bad. They're actually the lead, so they're not bad at all.
No, it's a good win without Embiid.
Yep, we'll take it. All right, man, that wraps up the show for tonight. Hour strong, as we always do here on 4th and Go. We got some picks to check back. Dial back the show a little bit, see what our 3 packs were. Eagles predictions, both of us having the Eagles winning this Sunday, capturing the number 1 seed in the NFC and going into the playoffs rested and strong with a home game TBD. Sixers looking good. We'll talk Phillies for sure next week. Flyers one of these days, maybe. They did get a couple wins recently, which was nice, but that is just a mess right now. But anyway, with that said, Mark, another good show, man.
Of course.
Looking forward to next week. Recapping Eagles Giants.
Yep. We'll be right here. Same time, same channel.
Love it. All right. Until then, for the Heat Ratio Sports Network, I'm Dave Gluckner. That's Mark Tomasini. We are Philly 444 plus so much more. 4th and Go, and we're out.